Hi, everyone, and welcome to Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds, a weekly rewatch podcast for TV shows, movies, and who knows, perhaps being forced into a relationship with an AI animated clock. My name is Mike Hilty.
And I'm Nick Farrow.
How are you doing today, Nick?
Oh, today I am doing swell. Nothing says Monday, like almost losing your entire podcast episode and having to re-edit and then coming home, taking sick time so that you could fix it. But we're not here to talk about the woes of creating a podcast. I actually wanted to ask you, I just recently got my The Marvels tickets. What about you? You going to see that when it comes out?
I'm going to. I just don't know when. I'm more excited for this than I was for Quantumania.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I would say so. It's mainly because of Iman Vellani. I'm most looking forward to how she fits in to this whole thing with Carol Danvers and Monica Rambeau. I'm very curious about that. I'm also a little curious about what Monica has been up to since WandaVision, because again, somebody that we have not seen or really heard from, 3 years?
3 years, yep. Last we saw, she was talking to a Skrull in a movie theater at the end of WandaVision.
I'm still wondering who she was talking about in WandaVision. It's like, oh, I know a guy.
I'm pretty sure it was Fury at this point.
I mean,
the cat's out of the bag.
Was it, or was it Reed Richards like we were all hoping that it would be?
Oh, goodness gracious. That was quite the speculation run that people were going nuts for. I remember that. Who is this mysterious scientist? It's nobody, guys. It's nobody.
Do you remember that
Yes,
throughout the course of WandaVision, there was that speculation? There was going to be speculation of Mephisto. It's always Mephisto.
The X-Men universe Flash. the X-Men universe Quicksilver. Yeah. Oh, I remember from week to week. It was a blast speculating on what could happen next. Were we all way outside the box? Yes. Did it matter? I don't think it did. I think in the end, when you take the show for what it was and not for what we wanted it to be, it still worked out.
I agree, but are you looking forward to the Marvels at all?
I am. Unfortunately, with the recent string of news, I am a little concerned, but I was looking forward to the Marvel. I'm like, oh, we need the Marvels so badly right now because it looks like it'll be a breath of fresh air. And then they were saying it's going to be a comedy and it's going to be short and it's going to be fun and it's not going to be a big, huge fate of the multiverse movie. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what we need. But now they're saying they had a 2-hour and 40-minute movie that they cut down to 90 minutes. And I'm like, oh, that's dangerous. I don't know if I like that, but I like these three. I'm very excited to see them together. I love the idea of them being a team. The only team I'm more excited to see in the future is Iman Vellani and Tom Holland teaming up for a Spider-Man Ms. Marvel team up. But other than that, give me more Ms. Marvel and her family. I love that about their show, and we will talk about that today, actually, later on.
Yes, I agree. I will be talking about that today as well. I'm very curious because, quite frankly, I'm looking way more forward to talking about that than talking about this Loki episode.
I know. I think we've been stalling long enough. Do you want to just get into it?
Yeah, let's just call it what it is. Let's get this shit over with. Let's do this. This week we'll be talking about Season 2, Episode 3, 1893.
Once upon a time, there was a lovely princess.
You must be truly desperate to come to me for help.
Quick side note for Disney Plus: stop trying to convince me to watch the new Goosebumps show. I'm not going to. We are treated to an old-timey saloon piano version of the Marvel theme song, along with the customary 35 minutes of logo. A sign for Chicago appears, and then finally, a Ravonna Renslayer sighting. It's about damn time! As she comes out of a portal. A caption appears saying we are now in Chicago in 1868 of the sacred timeline. Renslayer doesn't think she's in the right time or place, and she's wondering where she is. The camera spins around, and we finally also see Miss Minutes in a barn asking what took so long. Renslayer is wondering what she's doing in Chicago. Miss Minutes is wondering if Renslayer brought what she was supposed to. Renslayer shows that she has a small package, and Miss Minute instructs her to drop the package off in a window close by. She tells Renslayer, the one at the end of time, said to put the package in the specific window at that specific time period to protect the sacred timeline in the event that he dies. As someone is coming, Renslayer tells Miss Minutes to get out of the way since she doesn't exactly blend in. So what does Miss Minutes do to blend in more to 1868 Chicago? She turns sepia.
I mean, she's still a floating head.
Yes, she's still a floating animated clock. I don't know if turning sepia was the right way to go. Renslayer is wondering what she gets in return for making the drop, and Miss Minute says they both get to be by He Who Remains' side at the end of time if everything goes according to plan. So we cut to a young boy doing his science shit, and then the package is dropped into the house. The boy walks to the package and opens it and sees that it is a TVA official handbook.
Gray's Sports Almanac.
Why? Why?
What is going on? But whatever. Yeah. Okay. So just in case you didn't watch the previously on or the last episode, let's cue the obligatory during the episode previously on exposition dump, which we are now privy to in the very next scene. So when we come back from the word Loki flashing on the screen 87 times, we come back to the TVA, and Caseyford, Obi, and Loki are looking at a computer as the alarms are going off, saying loom status elevated. Loki is wondering how they get the blast doors open. Obi says, without He Who Remains' temporal aura, he doesn't know. Things are stable, however, all the branches that Doc's pruned are just growing back.
Time out. At what point in this show has there ever been a pruned timeline coming back? Is this...
I mean, I guess that's what the TVA does, isn't it?
Did this happen in season 1 at all? I don't remember this happening at all.
This is kind of like the question of the show, because we are introduced to the TVA. The TVA's job is to protect the sacred timeline. Whenever a branch happens, they prune it, and that way there's just one timeline. I guess the assumption then is branches happen all the time, and they send the hunters to prune those branches all the time. That's their job. They literally just go about pruning branches before they get to a certain point. It's possible that because the whole, that red line that they show, I'm thinking that because some of those branches crossed that red line and they tried to prune those, and then you did see last week those lines were disappearing. It's possible that once they hit that red line, it makes it easier for those branches to come back. I don't know, but I guess they've decided to no longer prune branches, then naturally it may not be the same branch, but branches will just continue to sprout out as long as the TVA stops trying to prune them.
I guess that's how I interpreted it, is that the same branch that was pruned is starting to come back, but if it's different branches, okay, that makes sense, because...
I mean, time is a flat circle, so I guess all time is happening at all times. So theoretically, a branch that is pruned could come back as soon as it's pruned. That part of the timeline still exists and could still hold the potential to be... See, this is where it gets crazy, and you don't want to think about it, because if you think about it too hard, it makes no sense.
I have to remember that this is a audio podcast, because I'm rolling my eyes so hard right now.
General Dox's prune timelines are coming back. Obi tries to explain exactly what needs to be done with the loom in order to sustain them, but it's just a bunch of technobabble that confuses everyone.
Wait a second, simpler.
Obi explains that the capacity needs to be scaled so that the loom can handle these new branches.
Otherwise it will fail, and the TVA will be destroyed, and we're all gonna die.
Mobius then says, we can hack into the system, meaning it as a possible question/solution. I mean, people only ever speak this way when you're a writer on a television show trying to set up a joke, which it was a funny joke, The only reason Mobius would say we can hack into the system as a question is so that then Obi can misinterpret him and go, oh, really? That's such a relief. And I have to say, they do this several times throughout the episode. They write a joke that makes no sense in context with the plot because people don't talk like that. But every time they did it, they ended up being funny jokes. So I kind of want to give them a little bit of credit there. But no, Mobius can't actually do that. So we see the Blastors struggling to contain the loom, and all is seeming hopeless when Caseyford suddenly suggests Miss Minutes could help. I'm guessing this is mainly for the benefit of the people who just decided to start watching at episode 3 and also not watch the previously on, because why are we spending our entire scene just explaining everything that happened last week? Just assume I watched your show. And if I didn't watch your show, that's on me for not watching your show. Don't try to waste time explaining it over and over and over again. It's just obnoxious.
I do not get the obsession right now with getting Miss Minutes. Also, like, how are they going to capture Miss Minutes? Like, with a Ghostbuster trap? Like, what the hell is this?
I have an answer for your first question. Your second question, I kind of have an answer to, but you're not going to like it. So the first question, like, why do they need Miss Minutes? It's because she can hack the system and backdoor access it.
Okay, but here's my problem is that, yes, I do understand that's why they need Miss Minutes, but haven't they kind of already assumed that Miss Minutes has gone rogue and renegade? They've made this joke multiple times throughout the season, yet they continually try to find Miss Minutes. That is my problem with this.
My assumption is they will try to forcibly return her to the TVA to make her fix things. They also could be playing benefit of the doubt for Miss Minutes. Hey, you know what? She's gone rogue, but maybe she's not evil. They're probably not assuming that she's a crazy ex-girlfriend looking to get with a variant of her boss. I don't know.
Right.
But then they show at the end that apparently she's able to be controlled with a little hand device, which I thought was weird. I'm like, well, how did she get to Chicago without Renslayer if you need this device to control her? Also, why did she not turn her off and just hide her in her handbag? Just turn her off. Shut her up. Like, you don't have to worry about her later. They needed it because they needed him a way to get rid of her. It made no sense as to where it came from in the first place. So I don't know. I don't know what they're doing.
This is the Superman / Captain Marvel problem all over again. It's like you have so many different avenues that you can go with something like this, and now you've made Miss Minutes potentially either too powerful or able to do like too much.
But also not enough. Like, it seems like by the end, she doesn't have the power to get them out of there, so...
She has the power to know all of the secrets and then tease us with those coming up at some point. We call that a tease. You know, come back next week if you want to know more. Like,
I kind of want to know more this week. It would have been nice if you had shared that information this week.
Because if they would have cut most of this scene and if they would have chopped up certain moments throughout this episode, like if certain characters would have spoken a little bit faster, then maybe we could have had a little bit more time to reveal the secret and maybe had a more compelling end of this episode that could have salvaged it. But we are getting ahead of ourselves because that's how much we really like what's going on. Right.
Yeah. Poor Caseyford, whose sole job this ep is to insist that we recall information that we've just been told a dozen times. He reminds us that Miss Minutes sent something to Renslayer's Tempad and that the 2 hits they received are most likely from the 2 points in time, Chicago 1868 and 1893, are their best places to start. The hope is that they find Renslayer, they'll find Miss Minutes with her, and Mobius says this will probably be awkward since last time they saw her, she tried to kill them. Loki suggests that they just keep focusing on the cartoon clock.
They keep referring to her as a cartoon clock, and I just can't take it seriously.
I'm going to start calling her the demon clock now.
I think calling her the psycho clock by the end of it is probably better because she kind of goes a little crazy.
Is she a Clockwork Orange?
Oh, Clockwork sepia, maybe.
Yeah,
So Loki and Mobius, decked out in their best Westworld outfits, steps out of a portal. This moment, which is the same place where Renslayer was in 1868 on the timeline, is where they got the hit on Renslayer's tempad. Mobius and Loki are struggling to connect the dots about the significance of this particular place in the timeline. Feeling lost, they decide to go to the second hit in 1893. And I'm wondering, why did we even go to this place?
Right?
Only for us
Why?
to just go to 1893. We could have just cut this like 2-minute scene out because it literally served no purpose.
Nope.
I don't have a lot of good things to say about this episode, but I did like the shot of them walking through the pool.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
That was cool.
I don't have a lot of good things to say about this episode, but again, and I've said it for everyone, the visual aesthetics of this show are great. When they are in the TVA especially, but like even when they leave the TVA, the way that they dress everything else, this Chicago World Fair looked awesome. And there were times where I'm like, are they in freaking Epcot? Is that where they're filming this?
Yeah.
I couldn't be sure, but it looked great. Everything about it was fun. The costuming is amazing. The setting is cool. The music is still top notch throughout. It's that story, man.
There's actually something about this episode from a technical standpoint that I just found kind of odd. There's a lot of like really wide shots and the characters are like super small. I'm wondering if it's supposed to be like a metaphor for what it's like to be this speck in time or something like that, or if it was a visual choice that the director had and I just couldn't get on board.
You're right. Now that you mention it, they did do that a lot. I don't think I noticed it in the moment because I was just so fixated on trying to follow along with the story and make it make sense. The way I watch things is I watch it for the story first, and then on the rewatches, I start to appreciate all that it is and all that it has around it. This episode wasn't letting me get there because every time I watch this episode, more and more questions piled into my brain because I'm trying to work it out. So after walking through the portal, we see the Chicago's World's Fair. It's in the same location in 1893, but now we're on a branched timeline. Still struggling to figure out the connection, Loki and Mobius walk towards the fair. So Loki asks, maybe they went to 1868 by mistake, and then to 1893 when they realized their error. But Mobius doesn't think so. Renslayer is not one to make mistakes, and with Miss Minutes as her ally, there had to be a purpose to the extra time jump. Mobius is confident that they will figure it out, and that the fair is where they will find them.
Yes, hot air balloons.
As they walk through the fair, they pass a paperboy who's selling newspapers, where the main story is about a ghost clock haunting Midway.
Extra, extra.
They buy a paper and find an illustration of what is clearly Miss Minutes. So Mobius and Loki agree that this is the breadcrumb they were looking for, and they head further into the fair to look for the two rogue ladies. We cut to a little while later, and Mobius is recounting all of the things they've seen at the fair so far, but Loki gets hung up on their unnecessary detour through the Cracker Jack concession stand.
The Cracker Jack concession stand is a high-traffic area. It was necessary and logical to go there. So the fact that it's tasty is just a bonus.
You know, this part with the Cracker Jacks does feel a little improvised, and I did like that. Again, not a whole lot that I like about that episode, but still like the dynamic between Loki and Mobius most of the time. There's a couple times the setup of the joke just didn't make a whole lot of sense given the situation.
Yeah. But it was a cute moment between the two of them. Like,
it was a cute.
And you're right, the Cracker Jack box moment was great. This show is being held up by the charisma of these two actors, and they are just so great together. The more that they get to interact and banter, the better. And that's probably why I did not care for the last 20 minutes of this episode, because our two main characters were not around at all.
Not in it at all.
So Loki thinks that Mobius is having too much fun sightseeing, and Mobius disagrees. They just have different styles, is all.
The next exhibit is familiar to Loki. It's about Norse mythology and has pillars of Thor, Odin, and Balder. Nick, do you know who Balder is in Marvel lore?
Yeah, no, I do. I'm aware of Balder to a degree because Balder in Norse mythology is just he's one of the Norse gods, and I guess he's a half brother of Thor because
Sure.
Odin
Sure.
gets around. It's always been wondered why they left him out because by 4 Thor movies, you'd think Balder would have shown up by now. Yeah, no, I as far as his appearances in the Marvel universe, I'm not all that familiar with him. He's got a gate. I know that.
Oh, that's right. Um, I feel like this is a tease that we could get Balder at some point or another. That would be a potential opportunity to write Thor off at some point. Not to say that Thor is starting to get tired, but I feel pretty confident at some point or another, like a lot of these other actors, Chris Hemsworth's gonna want to do something else.
Well, I mean,
It,
isn't that why they got Roy Kent for Hercules?
Perhaps, yeah. Loki thinks it's a crass generalization and that you can't reduce an entire culture down to a simple diorama.
Diorama Rama.
So, after making a comment that Thor isn't that tall, Loki turns around to follow Mobius, who's mapping out the rest of the day at the fair by wanting to go to the balloon park. Loki then notices a sign that says Victor Timely's Astounding Temporal Marvel. They proceed inside the exhibit to learn more. By the way, Victor Timely, great name.
That is a great name.
Outstanding.
I mean, he's kind of painted into a box as to what he has to do for the rest of his life, but otherwise, great name.
He could make watches. He could fix clocks. Maybe he sells sundials.
He could create an organization designed to control the flow of time.
Oh, that's a good one. He should try to do that.
He should try and do that. I feel like there's not a lot of money in that, but hey, eventually you don't need money if you're the king of everything.
It's good to be the king.
We cut over to a Westworld-like exhibit, complete with an old-timey band, and Miss Minutes, who is hiding in Renslayer's bag, asks, "Would you kindly let me out of this bag?"
Would you kindly?
And Renslayer says that she's going to stay in that bag until told otherwise. This is another great example of the writers writing a joke, not so that it makes sense, but just so that it can be there. Why is Miss Minutes in a bag? Turn her off. Like what? Or even you don't even have to turn her off. Just she doesn't have to be in a bag. Like and why does she not want to be in the bag? She can get out of the bag whenever she wants. She's Miss Minutes.
Well, and I think that's the big struggle I have with this part is because Miss Minutes can get from the Citadel to the End of Time to the TVA in a snap. Yet she feels like she has to listen to Renslayer when she clearly has the upper hand in this situation because she knows all of this info. Without Miss Minutes, Renslayer cannot do anything. So I don't see why Miss Minutes is listening to this unless it is just part of this whole elaborate plan. It just doesn't make any sense.
Not make sense. Chewbacca is a giant Wookiee living on the planet Endor with a bunch of little Ewoks. Does that make sense to you? Doesn't make sense to me. Sorry.
I can't believe you just pulled the Chewbacca defense on me.
Sorry.
For this. So,
I heard the words "that does not make sense" said in a very similar manner. I was compelled. The camera pans out and Loki and Mobius enter the same building that Renslayer and Minutes are in. Mobius has a good feeling about this place. They immediately spot Renslayer, but before they can go after her, the lights dim, the music stops, and the presentation begins. Dun, 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 dun.
On stage is a device that looks like the temporal loom. I keep wanting to call it the temporal loom because I can't read, so just, bear with me on that. A shadowy figure comes from backstage to say,
"Time is everything."
The figure continues to say, time moves through each and every one of us, and it shapes our lives and our futures. Perhaps we can shape it, and I hate this choice of acting so much because it just sounds ridiculous.
I know, you couldn't even do it the whole way. You were like, I gotta speed this up.
It's
so bad.
I get it. It's a choice. I was just really wondering who on earth was going to give him the note that says, yeah, stop doing this.
This is one of those things where I couldn't even blame the actor on this one. It very well could have been like that in the script. At this point, this script is out there. And I'm just wondering, like, are they trying to fill the run? They're like, we got to fill 50 minutes. How do we do that? Oh, make Jonathan face out his words. Because I don't know if you recall every episode of Ahsoka. I'm like, did Dave Filoni come in and do touch-ups on this script? Because holy crap, will you stop putting so many pauses in between your thoughts? It was awful.
And to think that we're not that far into the episode, and I'm thinking that it's probably for stage effect because he is just way over the top on stage.
See, I thought that too. But then there were moments on like the ferry or in his lab where he was definitely doing it. But then there were other moments where he was able to, form a natural, cohesive sentence. He's not that big of an actor that they couldn't have told him to knock it off. So my only suggestion is that it had to have been in the script. And everyone sitting on set goes, oh, he's nailing this. I love it.
But I think ultimately the inconsistency with the dialogue and everything like that, I feel like that's ultimately on the director, who needs to be like, hey, you're making a choice here, you're doing it, but you didn't do it in this scene. You need to cut that shit out. So I think between that and the weird camera shots and things like that, I think that part of the problem with this episode, along with the bad script and bad story, is also on the director, which I hate to crap on the director, but got to be done. When we give crap to visual effects people for how She-Hulk looks, we got to give crap to the director when they're not doing their job. The light comes on and the shadowy figure is a variant of He Who Remains. This is the post-credit scene from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And I'm glad that a post-credit scene doesn't take years to actually pay off to some extent or another, even though the payoff isn't that good.
You'll get nothing and like it.
Loki looks visibly shook, remembering what He Who Remains said about his variants. Time Lead presents a smaller version of the TVA loom. He claims that it could power the entire world. He turns the thing on and it lights up, and the place has lightning and sciencey looking things around him. Mobius wants to bring him back to the TVA, but Loki is not sure about that. Their first responsibility is to fixing the loom and scene.
After the performance, Renslayer tries to talk to Victor Timely, but he is approached and interrupted by a few wealthy, quote-unquote, investors who want to purchase his loom device. He starts a bidding war and then takes the payment from the winner of $1,000. We then see Timely paying off one of those quote-unquote investors at the bar, letting us know that Timely is more of a con artist than anything else. Renslayer is very confused. This guy does not feel like a He Who Remains type. But Miss Minutes assures him that it's all part of the plan, hun. As Loki and Mobius try to catch up with Timely, Loki accidentally bumps into a big burly dude who looks like Abraham Lincoln if he had won a hot dog eating contest. The man is very upset for being bumped into and knocks off Loki's hat, but they don't have time for this, so Loki sets his phaser to smoky sparks and transports him in a puff of green smoke outside into a cage with a pig.
Last week we talked about how much we wanted to see more of Loki's magic, but this is not the type of magic I want to see. It was weird, and he uses magic maybe like one other time this episode, and that's really it.
Just shooting green smoke at each other. The two catch up with Timely outside, just as Renslayer does as well, and in a scene that should have had so much more weight, nothing happens. I'm so baffled by this entire interaction. It's the complete opposite of the scene that Mobius set up at the TVA. He goes, how are we going to deal with her after she's tried to kill us? And apparently the answer is like two old friends in a zany road trip comedy. Hey, you can't take our guy. We're going to take our guy. Like, they do have a little bit more of a conversation momentarily after this, but it just was so weird and scattered in the moment. And then it's quickly like interrupted by another angry dude coming up to complain about a pair of mechanical pants that Timely had sold him. Although this does lead to a bit of a funny moment. I did appreciate that as he's talking to the guy, he slowly starts to like get lower so that way he's not taller than the dude, and he's like, but you look so tall, and the guy's just kind of like falling for it. I'm like, that's fun. Okay, so this shows Loki, Mobius, and Renslayer now that this guy's a con man, and Loki is like, I know how to deal with these people. They're my people.
I just need the cruel technology of this era to catch up with my visionary mind, you know? I never doubted it for a second.
So he's like sweet talking Timely, and as the children say, he's using his Riz as a trickster, and he's feeding into Timely's ego to gain his ear, and it's working. But yet again, they're disrupted by the investor from earlier who paid him $1,000 for his loom, claiming that the machine is a fake.
It's a fake.
And cut to the chase, literally, because the show seriously is not interested in doing what that phrase figuratively means. There's literally a chase scene now.
In Victor Timely's defense, he did say that it was a prototype. He didn't really.
Everything's a prototype to this guy.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. That's his line. He takes a girl out on a nice date. They go out, and then things start to get a little hot and heavy, and then he's like, sorry, baby, it's just a prototype.
Timely runs, and they all chase after him. He manages to trick the investor group into entering a giant Ferris wheel, trapping them inside. Mobius and Loki are trying to catch up to Timely when Mobius takes a call from B-15 and catches her up. Mobius explains that he has a He Who Remains variant, and that will work better than Miss Minutes. But the reason they are calling was because Caseyford got a really weird temp pad hit about 10 feet from where Mobius is standing. Loki then catches up to Timely just in time for Sylvie to show up.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Renslayer and Mobius catch up to the Ferris wheel in time to see Sylvie, Loki, and Timely enter an empty car. Renslayer and Mobius start bickering yet again. And you sided with Loki.
That's what she said!
Mobius says, well, you tried to kill me. Mobius pleads with Renslayer to join forces with them to save the TVA since they are both on the same side. Renslayer says that she doesn't work with Mobius anymore and she's not interested. This is another one of those conversations I feel could have been a lot better if they just kind of kept
more than
it
3 lines.
If they just would have also kept it a little bit more on the serious side, because given how much that they know each other, and instead of trying to make it seem like they're bickering, if she would have acted a little bit more hurt by how Mobius treated her, it seems like they had a pretty good relationship. I just don't get how upset Renslayer should be about this, because it seemed like she was pretty high up in the TVA. So
it seemed like in the first season they were close, like partners even. Like they might have been the team. And then she got the promotion to judge. Now it's just like they were brother and sister, and they hated each other, and they never got along. And now they're just not getting along further.
Cut to Sylvie telling Loki,
Get out of my face and let me finish the job!
Loki tells her that the TVA will be destroyed without Timely, and if the TVA is destroyed, then so too will her new home on the branch timeline. Sylvie is already 2 steps ahead and knows that Renslayer gave Timely the TVA book and assumes for reasons that the TVA and Loki are aware of it and are working with her.
Question, like, hey Sylvie, why'd you come to 1893? Just go to 1868. You know where he is. You knew he had the book. Just take care of it then. What are we doing here? You have a time-traveling device. It can take you anywhere in time. It's little things like this. It's like you can't overlook that.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
And therein lies the problem with their temp pads. At least with something like Back to the Future, you're limited to like the car and the location. It does not make a whole lot of sense where they go. And that is the big problem when you start to kind of mess with time travel.
At the very least, toss us some dialogue that explains why they can't do it. And that's all we're asking for. Don't give me 10 minutes of exposition on what happened last week when I already watched last week's episode and you're previously on. Give me 10 minutes of explanation of why all the shit you're about to do makes sense. Time travel, how does it work?
Loki is completely confused, but he is fully on team TVA. Sylvie takes another swipe at Loki and then recalls how familiar all of this is. They both then raise their green glowing hands and blast each other. Timely and Loki are blasted from the Ferris wheel car. Renslayer recovers Timely because I guess Mobius went on a smoke break or something. Maybe he went to go get more Cracker Jacks. I don't
He just
know.
left.
It's just not there.
He had to go get that bike for some reason.
She then sets Miss Minutes on the crowd to cause a distraction as a giant Miss Minutes in a ghost costume just in time for Halloween.
I liked the visual, and it made a great trailer moment.
I guess, but then the problem is that I thought the moment in the trailer would have been something of significance, but they only used it just as a sight gag and as a way to distract everyone. Mobius then shows up to Loki with a tandem bike to use as their getaway vehicle, I guess.
Your guess is as good as mine. They needed it to make a quick getaway.
I don't know. I also don't understand why Loki just goes absolutely not. Does he just want to run the whole time towards?
I mean, don't they have portals? Like, what do we need?
I mean, I guess the portals don't work as well as you think, because if they would have used the portal properly, they could have just caught him, but they couldn't. So
turn the portal on right in front of him as he's running. He would run right through it. You know, he's in the TVA now. We got him. Also, have you ever tried to ride a bike in a crowd, let alone a tandem bike? Like,
it is
going anywhere. So Renslayer, Miss Minutes, and Victor Timely escape, and they head over to Timely's temp pad. Get it? His temporary bachelor pad. His temp pad. I'm here all week, people. The Minutes and Renslayer kind of get the lay of the land, and Timely decides to show them one of his inventions, which is a refrigerator chair.
Why do we need this scene? We already know he's an inventor. Is this his way of flirting? Is this his way of, just showing off, flexing? Is this how people flex in 1893? My
headcanon, and I am constantly trying to make excuses for the show. My excuse in this instance is this is the show showing us that he actually is a good inventor. He's not just a con artist. That's all I got.
You heard it here first, everybody. Nick is enabling the show.
It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Miss Minutes and Renslayer introduce themselves to Timely in a more official capacity, and then they explain what's going on. Renslayer proceeds to give him the shorter and more streamlined version of Loki Season 1 previously on, and they're there to stop that from happening again. They want to protect him and restore order to the TVA. Then Timely and become the audience and lets them know that you guys saw that Loki and Mobius said the exact same thing. Why are you guys not on the same team at this point? So that's when the writer guy from pitch meetings bursts through the wall like Kool-Aid Man and yells, "So the show can happen!" But it doesn't make any sense. They all want separate things, but at the same time, the same result. What is the disconnect here? Mobius doesn't want to be in charge of the TVA. Renslayer does, so it seems like that's fine. We don't know what Miss Minutes wants, I suppose. So, I mean...
I think we know.
She wants his prototype. So,
but
I mean, it's possible that there's more to that. So the best they could come up with is he can't be trusted. Suddenly, they're interrupted by our angry investor group yet again. Timely says that they need to get out of there, across the lake, in fact, to his lab in Wisconsin. He needs to collect a prototype before they can go anywhere. Mobius and Loki then show up late to the party again, as we are treated to another chase scene, but it's really just a run in a circle around the set, which is clearly just 4 buildings. Not entirely sure what they were going for there. They run off stage right, but then we see Timely and Renslayer slip out stage left. Bum, 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 bum.
Timely and Renslayer board the ferry to cross the river, and while on the boat, they start talking about the TVA.
I don't do partners.
So he then shows her all of his sketches in the handbook that he received. He wishes he knew who gave him the book. Timely figures out that it was Renslayer, and she admits to having it done, but Miss Minutes acts all indignant that Renslayer was a glorified mailman.
Yeah, she didn't like that. Miss got sassy there.
Turns out Victor, in his sketchbook, made exactly the device that Obi needs. He drew something that could help the loom expand and make sure that it can hold all of the excess branches.
That was awfully specific.
Again, this is where top-notch writing
Flew out the window.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. Is it possible that AI wrote this episode?
I don't know. It probably did. A good script would have had him talking about the different things in his book, and then the camera could have panned over an image with the words of the exact thing that Obi said they needed. And then eagle-eyed viewers can go, oh, that's the thing. But no, they just look right at the screen and say, and I have the thing.
Victor is looking through the TVA guidebook and he sees a picture of Obi. Is it possible that Obi turns out to be a bad guy in the end?
My initial thought was, oh, shoot, that would be so cool. Maybe he could be. He wrote the book. Why would Obi have written the book on the TVA? But then again, maybe he was just the first TVA member. I came all the way back around to, the show's not going to do that. That's way too convoluted. Although maybe they could, because now I'm back on it again. That's exactly the kind of nonsense they could come up with. I have a follow-up question for you. If Obi's picture is in the back of the book and Casey was such a big fan, how did he not recognize Obi when he met him last week? And if the answer is because the writers didn't write this scene yet when they wrote that scene, that's really bad writing.
First of all, I love that you said that this whole scenario could be convoluted when we have a whole convoluted multiverse story right now. So, secondly, lazy writing, I don't think is the problem. I just think it's bad. It's just bad writing. That's all.
I think it's rushed. Okay, let's not say bad writing. I think it's rushed writing. It's the kind of writing you do when it's Monday night and you go to look at the script for your podcast episode and half of it is missing. And you have to quickly rewrite half of a script because the freaking internet deleted half of it on you. Whatever you get that episode is what you get because we didn't have time to rewrite and make it clever. I mean, honestly, I think we're doing a pretty good job.
This is more clever than the episode that we watched.
It is. Nobody went over it with a fine-tooth comb, let alone maybe a second time. It was a first draft.
Yeah.
At best.
So Timely and Renslayer are flirting a little bit, which I did not like. It felt a little weird.
He definitely doesn't have the Riz, as they say. So
stop calling it the Riz.
Listen, I just repeat what I hear. I don't have any context.
Who's got no Riz now?
Renslayer tries to convince Timely that they could be a great partnership, and then she goes to sleep for some strange reason. Like, it made
I don't know. She just woke up then.
That made
smash cut to her waking up in a boat. Like, what happened? Where's that transition scene?
Yeah, that just seemed very odd. So jump cut to Renslayer being dropped off the ferry in a lifeboat. We see Miss Minutes telling Timely from the railing that he had to do it because how dare she want a partnership with him? He already said that he works alone.
In Timely's lab, which is apparently a mannequin storage facility, he starts collecting things around the room. Miss Minutes is not acting creepy at all in this scene. Timely holds up a device and claims it to be the culmination of his life's work. He's talking about the very specific thing that Obi needs to fix the loom. He goes to leave, but Miss Minutes asks, "What's the rush, sugar?" Miss Minutes decides that this is the perfect time to start monologuing with the dude that she definitely doesn't want to scare away right now. But scare away she must, because she is just overwhelmed with the urge to become the stalker ex-girlfriend and proceeds to freak him the F out.
Of all the scenes in this episode, which there's a lot of them that I didn't like, this scene does not make sense at all. Are we going to get a scene where like Miss Minutes goes all Pinocchio and just tries to become like a real girl? Like, what are we doing?
He Who Remains gave her free will, but she is super pissy that he never gave her a body. They went through eons of life, war, and the TVA together, but no body. How dare he? How can she become a leader of people if she's a clock? No one will listen to a clock. Timely reminds her that she keeps saying you when really she means the other guy.
Why don't we do this the easy way where you don't use that and the other guy doesn't make a mess?
And Miss Minutes doesn't seem to care. It's full-blown misery up in this place, and Timely ain't no dummy. He quickly uses the magic button that turns Miss Minutes off, which I gotta tell you, usually the magic button does the opposite of that, but hey, what are you gonna do? She starts running towards him and screaming she loves him as he shuts her down. Suddenly, there's an off switch for Miss Minutes. Never seemed to need it before, but in this case, we needed it, so now he has it. I don't know. It's so weird.
Just then, in walks Renslayer with a pruning stick bazooka of some type. How did Renslayer find them? She was in a lifeboat. How did she know where it was going?
She's a really good rower.
Did she use a portal?
I'm going to say yes, she did use a portal. And here's why. Because otherwise, it makes no sense how Sylvie and Loki and Mobius found them so quickly after that. The show doesn't tell you that she used a portal, which all you have to do is show her coming out of a portal, and boom, now it explains. Miss Minutes said we can't use a portal because they'll track us. If they had shown her using a portal, then boom, makes sense. But otherwise, now we're just left wondering if our headcanon is the answer. And like I said last week, yes, it's probably the answer. Shut up, nerd.
The pruning stick bazooka is set to gore, and Renslayer uses it to vaporize a mannequin. Renslayer tells him that she is in charge, and then Loki and Mobius bust in. Then, because the writers have no idea what character motivation is, she tells them that if they come any closer, that she'll prune Timely.
What is going on now? She needs Timely, but now she's so mad she's gonna prune him. Just for spite? Why?
Seems like a bad move to have. First of all, you have gone 2 episodes without this character, and then subsequently in this episode destroyed any like interest that could have been cool with Renslayer. And now I just don't care about her anymore throughout the course of this season. I was looking forward to
bringing her up. You kept saying it, and I'm just like, you are probably not going to like the answer. And I didn't know, but I could just tell she's not in these first 2.
So what you're saying is that it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
I think you're great.
Renslayer takes this moment to have her own little monologue. They have no idea what it takes to lead and keep order, and who do they think they are telling her that she's lost her way?
I mean, she has. We just said it. She's lost her way. This is definitely not the Renslayer I remember. So.
She's the only one who can bring order to the TVA because that's what she's been doing for eons. Everything fell to shit when she left. Just as she's about to prune Timely, Sylvie ex machina blasts the place with green smoke. She pulls her knife so she can kill Timely herself.
Okay, I have thoughts here. Okay. 1, Sylvie, she was about to kill him. You wanted to be the one to do it? Like, what are you doing, Sylvie? Let her do it. That's what you came to do in the first place. Why interrupt?
That does not make sense.
Little motivations like this make no sense at all. Like, so it makes no sense that suddenly Sylvie wants to freaking not kill He Who Remains variant when he was about to get killed and she came here to kill him. Like, I don't understand. What are we doing here? But it does lead to a very nice moment, which I will give this episode credit. He pleads. He is not who she thinks he is. He is not that other variant. He's not that other person. I'm not 100% sure if he repeats her exact words to her, but she essentially says this exact thing to Loki as a plea for her own life. She is a variant. Someone once tried to prune her for exactly the same reason. They felt that she was a threat to the timeline. She feels he's a threat to the timeline. He says she doesn't know him and the heart that beats in his chest. And this works on her because she has now felt that connection. And earlier in the episode, she did say she doesn't want to kill him. She has to kill him. I kind of see where the show's trying to make a connection. It's just they plunked a little golden nugget down in the middle of a turd sandwich, and I don't think I want that golden nugget now because it's got turds smeared all over it. So she just lets him go.
No notes.
Like, tell me if I'm crazy. Like, am
No.
I seeing way too much into this?
Well, considering also Sylvie said that she's just going to go and like kill all the variants. And obviously this guy is special. He's part of He Who Remains' backup plan. He's the iCloud backup of this whole thing.
It's the He Who Remain you get on Wish.
I think when she said like in the Ferris wheels, like, do you think I enjoy doing this? Like, no, you wouldn't get any joy out of it, but it's what you want to do. Mobius and Loki take timely back to the TVA through the time door. Sylvie then turns to Renslayer and rather than kill her, sends her to the castle at the end of time to chill with Miss Minutes and the remains of He Who.
The remains of he?
Miss Minutes says it was a bad move to make an enemy out of someone who knows all of his secrets, and she knows a really big one about Renslayer, and it's going to make her really angry when she finds out. So, Nick, what do you think the secret is? Do you care at this point?
At this point, I do not care, but I did have a couple thoughts. I'm going to say either daughter or mother of He Who Remains.
I mean, the mother angle, as ridiculous as it was when we first talked about it, makes sense because that little boy, like in 1868, looked like he was just all by himself.
Yeah.
So
she abandoned my child.
I've abandoned my boy!
I don't think that it really matters at this point. In fact, I think the show would probably be better for it if they do not make this a big deal with their 3 episodes remaining.
I was thinking daughter. It's either that or maybe she's like a variant of like some important person.
Oh, here you go. I didn't even consider that. Sylvie's a variant of Loki. Why couldn't she be a variant of He Who Remains? And that solves your real world problems of maybe having to lose an actor.
And that would also solve my big issue of Gugu and Bathara just being absolutely wasted
right?
in this.
What is this leading to? What is the purpose here? I feel like the purpose should be to set up secret wars. I feel like it should be to set up secret wars, or at the very least to connect to the other Ant-Man post-credit scene where all the Coliseum O'Kang was hanging about. I would love to see more of that. I would love to see something that in any way indicates that those dudes are going to start dispersing throughout the universe and showing up in other movies. But I don't know. Doesn't feel like that's what's going to happen. So,
I mean, do you remember how long it took between Thanos putting on the gauntlet and saying, fine, I'll do it myself, and things actually start to happen?
Age of Ultron to Infinity War was 3 years.
There you go.
2015 to 2018. The difference, I think, in this case is those movies were leading to something. And so far, it's been 3 years. There's still no setup in sight. We're not getting an Avengers movie anytime soon. We're not seeing any of these little stories go anywhere. It just feels all scattershot. And I think that lack of culmination is causing an increased desperation due to the lack of release. So I don't know.
Lack of release. Yeah. So basically you're saying that, the MCU needs to try a little bit harder and then it'll...
I'm saying Kevin Feige, my balls, they're bleh. They're bleh.
That's staying in.
That's fair. I'll sign off on that one.
Suffice to say, neither of us like this episode very much.
If you couldn't tell.
Yeah. I feel like not a lot happened. I feel like it was very oddly directed. The story just didn't make a whole lot of sense. And here's the thing. We only have 6 episodes in this season. and this feels like a waste of an episode. I'm going to reserve judgment on what this is going to be like moving forward until I see the next episode. But I got to admit, I'm officially concerned. I don't know where this is going, and I'm also kind of rapidly starting to lose interest.
I think overall it's more disappointment for me. As
I'm
a
not
parent,
mad. I'm
it's
not
a
mad.
matter you learn not to be mad, to be disappointed. And in this case, it's disappointment because Loki was supposed to be the one that proved that the MCU hadn't lost it. I was hoping with Loki coming back, it was going to be like back to form. Like, see, we still got, like when Guardians 3 came out, the MCU still got it. Just because they've had a few missteps. Like, it's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Boring conversation anyway.
Do you think maybe we should quickly talk about our favorite characters in our He Who Remains segment?
I'll take you home and lock you in a nice little cage and never, ever let you out.
Do you imprison everything you like?
Of course.
He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die.
The Moopsie is Narja's favorite.
Moopsie.
No, I don't, because I don't have a favorite character this week. Who's your favorite character this week?
Nobody. Everybody sucks.
That's going to do it for our He Who Remains award.
I'm a wild rogue living on the edge of chaos. I sit weird in chairs. You can't predict me.
Let's move on to our next segment, which is called The Sacred Timeline.
You know, my pep always said, if you want to do something right, you make a list.
He's making a list.
I'll put it on the list.
It's quite an impressive list. Thank you.
In this segment, Nick and I will be doing the impossible task of ranking our favorite MCU movies, and then we will collectively rank them in one unified list, no branches or variants here. Only the MCU proper. Today we will be ranking 25 through 17, and then we will be doing the rest in following episodes. The final episode will be us figuring out our joint list together. So, Nick, what is your number 25?
My number 25 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
No! Oh, that's the button that will kill everyone!
I like this movie more than I did, as I alluded to. I really enjoy the stuff they do with Nebula and Gamora in it. I think that is the core of the movie that doesn't get a whole lot of runway because they, of course, had to focus on Peter and his dad. I think that the people who love this movie more than most are the ones who are easily swayed by that incredibly touching and emotional scene with Yondu at the end and kind of give it a pass for all that. And that works for me, but it doesn't get me the way that everybody else seems to love it. So I can't rank it higher than this. I do have a softer spot for this one now, years later upon revisiting.
Listen, Nick, you and your hollow tin chest can calm down for a second. My number 25 is Moon Knight.
No, the idiot's back.
I said that last week. We talked about it enough. So what's your number 24?
My number 24 is the original Doctor Strange.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
I really like this one. It is super fun. It is a great intro. I really enjoy it. I think it was a fun third act that broke the conventions of most Marvel movies. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is doing his best to not do a weird accent, but failing. I think he's gotten a lot better since, so I really like that. And I love Wong. The introduction of Wong. It was the right amount of Wong. Never the Wong amount of Wong. So.
Oh, I have this much higher on my list.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, we're approaching my absolute favorites. Like, when I talk about my favorite MCU movies, it's like 20 up. Like, I think like everything from 20 and up is like awesome. And then like the top 5 are like god tier. But we're starting to get to the like this is the B plus A minus range at this point.
So. Yeah. Okay. We're going to be talking about Doctor Strange much later. For me, at least.
Oh, that's fun. I like that. You like that one a lot.
I have 2 main reasons why I liked it so much. And I'll talk about that when I talk about it in a couple weeks. Here's another one that we talked about at length And I would know that because I edited the last episode. My number 24 is Civil War.
I know you know a lot of super people, so thanks for thanking of me.
Civil War. I was just gonna
For-
guess like
for
that's the
a-
only one we really talked about.
For a lot of the reasons that we had talked about already, I still think that Civil War set that bad precedent. It's an event film, kind of masquerading as a Captain America film. All right, what's your number 23?
My number 23 is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. This is a tough one to judge.
It is a very
because
tough one.
How
to
do you judge a movie that was doing the best that it can, being that it had to completely be rewritten, changed, pay tribute to an actor who they lost, and all do it in under 2 years? And the only reason they got 2 years is because of the pandemic. So and also they had to do it during the pandemic. So everything about this movie, it was marred by tragedy, unfortunate circumstances, and real world getting in the way of things. That being said, anybody who has half a brain would know you don't put Julie Louis-Dreyfus and Martin Freeman in this movie if you don't have anything for them to actually do, especially this movie. Like it almost felt disrespectful for them to even be in the movie with the stupidness of their scenes. On top of the fact that I was team recast Black Panther. So I know that a lot of people don't like that. I feel that this character's too important to say that, nope, he's dead now and he's gone forever. And sorry, kids, if you really saw him as a role model, you're never going to get him again because only one actor could ever play him ever. I just think that's silly. Like, and then what's his face dies and he's immediately recast with Harrison Ford. So it's I don't understand. Like I get that he was important, and yes, Chadwick Boseman was an amazing Black Panther. He was so perfect in that role, and so there would always be that problem of comparison. So how do you even be the actor to replace him? But I just think overall, it felt like this whole phase was going to be Black Panther's phase. Like, he was going to be the one that snaps his fingers and dies at the end of Secret Wars to save everyone, a la Tony Stark in Endgame. So to say that just gone now sucks. And I hate it. I hate what happened in real life. I hate they had to make a movie to fix it. It's just, I wish that they could have done something a little bit more organic and less forced. That being said, I think that they did a really great job, and it made me cry every time I saw it. It was a very sweet movie that I just felt kind of got lost in the weeds.
I don't have much more to add. I agree with you. It was a very tough and unfortunate situation.
It was so sad. Like, it was awful.
I am queen of the most powerful nation in the world, and my entire family is gone. Have I not given everything?
My number 23 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Here's the stuff that I really like about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. A lot of the stuff that you said, I do really like. I do like Kurt Russell as Ego, the Living Planet. I thought that was an interesting choice. I liked the addition of Mantis. She's very different, and I think the dynamic between her and Drax was really great. You could see the blueprint to make Rocket a little bit more of a more prominent character. And to know what we know now from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I think that it was a good move to do that. I think the scene with the arrow with Yondu at the prison, fun. That was cool.
Baby Groot. I did not mention Baby Groot because I'm stupid, and Baby Groot's freaking awesome. The part where he brings them the severed thumb is hilarious.
Yes, Baby Groot was great. The only real hangups I have with this is that the Adam Warlock tease at the end, that was kind of weird. I wasn't a huge fan of Aisha and the Sovereign. And also the part at the end with the whole tease of the older Guardians of the Galaxy, and that for that to just amount to nothing. I didn't like the soundtrack as much for this one as I did the first one. but I still like the
Yeah.
soundtrack
Correct.
to this. And this is also the one that had like 7 post-credit scenes.
It did, yes. I didn't like it a ton when it first came out. This was the movie where they let James Gunn have a little bit more freedom, actually a lot more freedom, because Guardians 1 was such a hit. He got carte blanche. He got to do whatever he wanted. He got to be a little more gross. He got to be a little bit more edgy. He got to be more jokey. And it didn't always work. I feel like James Gunn is one of the types of people who sometimes needs to be reined in a little. I don't know if he has been since then, but everything he's done since that point, I've really enjoyed.
What is your number 22?
22 for me, I alluded to it, is Doctor Strange and In the Multiverse of Madness.
You break the rules and become a hero. I do it and I become the enemy. That doesn't seem fair.
Or as I like to call it, in the multiverse of only kind of a little madness. I feel like this is a movie that doesn't deliver on its title. It is not a multiverse of madness. It was very mild. I really like so much in it. In fact, the thing that I like the most is the Sam Raimi of it all. I think his style is exactly what that movie needed. It's exactly the thing that us as fans have been clamoring for. Hey, if you're going to get this specialized director who does a thing a very specific way, let them do it that very specific way. And in this case, Sam Raimi did. And I think the movie is better for it. That first time I saw it, it was weird as hell. And I was like, I don't think I like that very much. But every time I've seen it since, I have very much enjoyed it a lot more. I dig pretty much all the aesthetics in the movie. I am even one of the apologists who goes, you know what? I totally buy that even though Wanda had a specific arc at the end of WandaVision, they set up that for the past year, she's been living on her own, reading this evil book, dreaming about her children that she lost. I get it. I get that she'd go evil. That makes sense to me. She went a little nutsy. The Scarlet Witch as a character has always kind of rode that line of sometimes she's a good guy, sometimes she's a bad guy. And I really enjoyed all of that. I think America Chavez got kind of lost in the weeds of the movie a little. She was more of a MacGuffin than an actual character. But for the most part, I think everybody else was really well serviced. There is the whole cameo fest in the middle, and I will agree with a lot of the negative detractors that that's not the best way to do cameos. I think that the cameos they do in Spider-Man No Way Home, even though I blasted it last weekend, were better served for the story than the cameos in Multiverse of Madness. Mr. Fantastic shows up. I lost my shit. I was like, that was amazing. But we're never getting him again. Anson Mount, Captain Pike. He was Black Bolt in the original Black Bolt suit from the comics, which he never got to wear in that stupid Inhumans TV show. That was super cool. Patrick Stewart, good old P-Stew, coming back in his yellow X-Men, the animated series wheelchair.
Yeah, I was about to say.
It's not really a wheelchair. Hover chair? It's a hover chair.
It's still technically okay, fine.
I think it hovers. I don't think it's a wheelchair.
I lost my mind when they started playing the old X-Men cartoon theme song in the background.
I loved it.
I'll talk about it a little bit more later on this list today, but I actually don't think that they let Sam Raimi do Sam Raimi stuff enough in this.
That's a fair point. He reined in, yeah.
Well, and the other thing too is that not only did it not deliver on this whole thing with the Multiverse of Madness, they didn't even accomplish what they originally set out to do, which was, hey, we're gonna make Marvel's first horror movie. Like, no, you didn't.
Oh yeah.
No,
well, I mean that went out the door the second Scott Derrickson took off.
I'm really hoping at some point or another that Doctor Strange does get to explore a little bit this whole thing with like Tony Stark and the One. Because did he do that because it was the one chance he got?
I thought the exact same thing.
I much rather would have gotten a storyline around that and just his guilt with that, because a small part of me thinks that he just did that just so that they could win. and he's just messing with time some more.
I think the movie kind of alludes at the wedding.
Yes.
The one way that they won wasn't the one way that they won. It was the one way where he didn't die and they won. And I think that's where they were going with it, where now Doctor Strange has to deal with a life where Tony Stark sacrificed himself and he didn't have to because Doctor Strange could have done the sacrificing. And that would have been a very interesting story. But it also would have made Doctor Strange a little bit of a villain. Because, and I wouldn't be surprised if the way people reacted to freaking Star-Lord punching Thanos, like Chris Pratt is a social pariah now because of that one scene in that movie. So now what do you do if you say, well, Doctor Strange killed Tony Stark? No one's going to like that.
The end, I'm a little iffy on, and not the actual like ending itself with like the third eye and like the Clea of it all.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice. Totally works if you plan on making Doctor Strange 3 in the next 2 years. But at this point, maybe in 2028 we'll get it. So who cares?
Two other things that I will say about this is that one, this is also the movie where I'm starting to get a little concerned that Benedict Cumberbatch is starting to get tired of playing Doctor Strange. And then the other thing too is that I want to see this whole hanging thread with Mordo resolve.
Yes.
And the fact that we didn't do it in this.
Well, I'm glad they didn't do what they planned on doing in this.
Yeah. There's a lot to like about it. It's a little bit higher on my list. Not by much. My number 22 is Hawkeye.
Hi.
Okay.
Hawkeye was not a character that I was particularly interested in getting his own show, but the Kate Bishop of it all just made it worth it. I really like Kate Bishop as a character. I really like the Haley Steinfeld casting. I thought that was just brilliant. I don't think that they explored enough the grief Hawkeye had about that whole scenario where he got the Soul Stone. I kind of wanted more of that. And I also kind of wanted more of the conversation that him and Kate had was like, yeah, I'm no hero. I've done a lot of bad stuff. I thought it was an interesting choice to have Vincent D'Onofrio back as the Kingpin.
Best choice ever.
I squealed in glee. And I even like that it was set during Christmas. But I think the thing that I struggled with the most with Hawkeye is that it was pretty much let's kill the henchmen, the show, where it was just wave after wave of random henchmen.
And they didn't even kill any of them.
They just immobilized them.
Why are you making it so tough on us, bro?
The addition of Echo was an interesting choice, considering that they both have hearing issues. So that was cool. And we get more Yelena. What more could you ask for?
I agree with some of what you said, but we're not going to be talking about Hawkeye for me today. So I'll save all of my thoughts for next week.
What is your number 21?
My number 21 is the title on the list that fluctuates with every new edition of the franchise. Let me explain. This TV show will always be the exact center of my list, for I both love it and hate it equally. It is true neutral. It has no placing. So currently it's at 21, but only because we have an odd number of shows. As soon as The Marvels comes out, it will be demoted to number 22. And that might mean that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness jumps over it. And that is Ms. Marvel. It is the tale of, I'm going to say 3, but I feel like that's almost being generous. It's a tale of 3 shows. I feel like they completely screwed up the execution of this show. The first 2 episodes I thought were absolutely astounding. A+ television. I loved the aesthetic of all of the cartoon drawings in the background, interacting with the scenery. I thought that was just the most clever. The camera work, her personality, her family, everything about her family was amazing. Everything about this girl and her world, I was all in for. And then the middle episodes felt like they were completely different show. The villain plot, the trip to India. I feel like I could have gotten a full 6 episode series just on that premise, like going to India, finding out our backstory, meeting characters there. But they didn't want to give us a full. They wanted to give us 6 episodes, and that was it. And instead of giving us 3 really great seasons of a TV show, they gave us 1 mediocre season of 3 seasons crammed into 6 episodes. And then the final 2 episodes kind of got back to what they had been doing in the first 2, but like not really. And the villain's plot coming to fruition, and I just thought it was a mess. And I really loved so much about it. Iman Vellani is probably to this day the perfect casting of a Marvel person after Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Like, I think she's great. I just really wish they had more faith in her and the writers in the show to fully develop a full TV series and not a miniseries.
I largely agree with all of that. If they had just stuck a little bit more with the high school storyline and kept it a little bit more contained, I think it just would have been a much stronger first season. But like you said, it just kind of goes too far. I also am a big fan of the fact that I'm a firm believer representation matters. And, this is just a whole nother side of representation that the MCU doesn't really have. Also, what better way to continue to introduce younger people for this Young Avengers initiative than to introduce Miss Marvel?
I agree with you, especially everything you said about the representation.
So my number 21 is Ant-Man. I think exploring this whole microverse, the premise of it was cool. Too bad the execution of it a couple of movies later didn't turn out great. The dynamic of Scott's team of thieves, particularly Luis, I miss them in the third movie.
Oh, absolutely. They were great in the first one.
Having Michael Douglas come in as Hank Pym, just top-notch casting.
I agree. I think he really enjoyed the role.
I like the dynamic between Scott and Cassie. I think they're adorable together. This is the most we got out of Judy Greer in the MCU, and that makes me sad.
Actually, I'm going to disagree with you there. I think we got more out of Judy Greer in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 as the robotic pig person than we did in the Ant-Man franchise.
Yeah. If I knew now what happens to the Yellow Jacket in Quantumania, that was a choice. And
it was a choice. It's funny enough, that was a choice that I hated it when I first heard it. Then I thought about it and was like,
I still hate it.
You know what? I kind of like that idea. I think they executed a great idea the worst possible way. So that was disappointing. And then the whole wanted to be good at the end was even more disappointing. But no, the first Ant-Man, good movie. I like it. Just not as much as you.
Very true. All right. Your number 20.
My number 20 is Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas Special. I have already said multiple times on the show, I think these specials are perfect. I love them. I think that they need to do this for everything. I really enjoyed the Christmas special because it felt like a Christmas special. Growing up, we would have the Christmas specials show up on TV. I love that they do the special presentation that makes fun of the old, like, I don't even, it might have been NBC, the dun, 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 dun. Like, I love that. I absolutely thought that was like one of the most clever things they could have done. And the fact that James Gunn did the music for it again, just like the rest of them. So it still stayed in line with being part of the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. It just felt natural. Everything about it. It was a nice little bridge episode between where we last left the Guardians and Guardians Volume 3. And it was a sweet little story about Christmas that only the Guardians could do, that involved the kidnapping of Kevin Bacon.
That is very true. There is no other group or other characters in the MCU where a Christmas special would work. I struggled a little bit more with the Kevin Bacon of it all.
I died. It was the funniest thing ever. Watching them chase, and not to mention that my kids absolutely adore this one. They were singing that song, ho 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 ho, Christmas is so weird. Like they were singing it nonstop well into January. Like they would not stop singing that song. They loved it. And I kind of love it too. Like it's great. I don't know. It's one of those things that as you get older, you're constantly searching for that nostalgic high of your childhood. And the Guardians Christmas special really felt like as close as I could get. It was different. I'll always give them points for different. Your number 20, sir.
My number 20 is Thor. And it's quite a bit higher. And part of this is because I had an amazing theater going experience.
Oh, yeah?
I went to go see it on Cinco de Mayo with a buddy of mine at like 10:30 at night, and we were hammered. So,
good choice of word.
Yeah, I know, it was strategic. Look,
it was totally on purpose.
Yeah, the part where Thor drinks the coffee, he smashes the mug on the ground and says another. We laughed for like 20 minutes after after that happened. After rewatching it again sober, some of the things that stood out, I love the Kenneth Branagh of it all.
Yeah.
It's a shame that they couldn't get him to come back for more. Because I think that he did a really good job with that. The cast of this is really, really great. And even you could tell that it's got Kenneth Branagh's fingerprints all over it because of the Shakespeare. It feels very Shakespearean. So this introduced a lot of like amazing characters that we still have in the MCU to just explore it. Like Asgard looks beautiful in this as well. Thor does look very weird. The Hawkeye cameo was fun.
I like that
in
one
it as well. The ending is weird because this giant destroyer, like I didn't understand, but whatever. I just kind of let it slide. When they go back to Asgard and him and Loki finally face off, like I got kind of choked up a little bit.
Yeah.
During
that part is really good.
And Anthony Hopkins is also, he cares about this. I cast you out.
Anthony Hopkins is great. I also, we haven't mentioned him at all. Clark Gregg as Agent Coulson he's really great in this one. Like he's funny. He was the connective tissue. He was Phase 1's Wong. Like he's in everything and he connects everything. Oh no, hope they don't do that to Wong. And I really liked him in this one. Probably best out of his other appearances over Iron Man 2, Iron Man 1, even Avengers. I think his best performance was in Thor, and I think it's because it looked like he was having the most fun with this one.
The post-credit scene that introduced this is one of my favorites of all the post-credit scenes. I think it was at the end of Iron Man 2 where Coulson is like in New Mexico. It's like, we found it. Camera pulls back and it's the hammer.
Yep.
Like, that's awesome. Very excited about that. You're 19.
This is where I have Captain America, the First Avenger. This is one that is 100% a revisionist history movie. I had this one so low on my list when it first came out. For the longest time was like, this is the worst one of all the Phase 1 movies because I could not stand that they cut out half of the movie with a montage. They were like, all of Captain America's adventures took place in this one montage. And I'm like, come on! Like you could have made 3 Captain America movies in those montages. I understood that they wanted to get to Avengers. I just couldn't see it at the time. And when you go back and you rewatch the first Avenger all the way through to Endgame, the first Avenger becomes one of the best and most key movies in the entire MCU. I love it so much more now, and it's definitely because it's what it started and what it led to. Even though I have it only at 19.
We're grasping at straws right now.
I could probably move it up if I wanted to. Like, that's just it. That's when it gets tougher. Although the way Loki season 2 keeps going, Loki's going to be joining Captain America at 19. Everyone in it is doing great. Tommy Lee Jones, awesome. Freaking Haley Atwell is so good that they gave her own TV show. and they're still trying to find ways to bring her back into the series.
When you're looking for things that are different, this is different. It feels like through and through a 40s movie. I like the message that it sends with like the super soldier serum. We're going to take someone good and make them great.
The serum amplifies everything that is inside. So good becomes great. Bad becomes worse.
Hugo Weaving's The Red Skull doesn't get enough credit. I think the villain's pretty one note because it's pretty hard not to get on board with like destroying Nazis.
Right? Well, this is it. That was part of my original complaint about the movie. It's like you have the Red Skull. These characters almost make for a better serialized television show. It's like G.I. Joe. It's Joe's versus Cobra. It would have been better to see more of them.
Well, and then here's the other thing as well. When I first heard that Old Human Torch was going to be Captain America, I was like,
you and everybody else.
No. I just remember walking away from this like really impressed. If this is going to be our Captain America moving forward, good. That was just great casting.
All right. So you're 19 then.
My number 19 is Miss Marvel. And
okay, there you go.
Simply like the biggest reason, it's Iman Vellani. That's the biggest reason. Her casting is one of the best in the MCU, and she's the character that I'm just looking forward to just sharing more adventures with. What's your number 18?
My number 18 this is where I have Spider-Man Far From Home. I really enjoyed this entry. As I mentioned last week, Mysterio is one of my favorite villains, and I think they nailed him. I love Jake Gyllenhaal. The tease at the end of J. Jonah Jameson coming back was like one of the coolest things ever. And then this one, I felt that they did such a better job with the action. We both haven't spoken about Homecoming yet because I have it a lot higher, but the action in that movie, it was probably my only big negative. Everything was dark. They were definitely trying to hide budgetary restraints. And I think they fixed all of that for Far From Home. You could see everything. That daytime fight scene at the Tower Bridge was so cool. The fact that he was using his webs in creative ways, the fact that he was being the scientist trying to solve problems and do math and be the nerdy kid while also being Spider-Man in that fight scene was so cool. I loved how he developed his spider sense better. Like, even though they've shown him he has the spider sense, like now they're kind of giving a face to the power. And I really enjoyed it. I didn't mind the whole going to Europe thing. Like, I thought it was interesting. It wasn't what I would have done, but I liked it fine. I really had a fun time. I really can't stress how I did not love those other two iterations of Spider-Man. So when Homecoming came out and I walked out of the Spider-Man movie, like on cloud 9, and then it happened again 3 years later with Far From Home, I was like, top of the world. I'm like, this is exactly what I've always wanted, and I love it. So I very much enjoy Far From Home.
My number 18 is Multiverse of Madness. What's your number 17?
It's a Captain America sandwich with Spider-Man meat. I have Captain America, the Winter Soldier here. And I know what you're saying, Nick, that's really, really low. For years, that was my number 2.
Whoa.
That was my number 3. Yeah, for years, my 1, 2, and 3 were the Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I really loved this movie so much. It was awesome. Like, everything that I didn't like about the first Avenger, when it first came out, I was like, they turned it around. It's a awesome freaking movie. It's gone down in my estimation since, and they've come out with a lot more that I've loved more since. I really enjoy the whole Bucky and Steve dynamic. I enjoy the Falcon introduction, Anthony Mackie coming in and really adding a great character dynamic to replace the Bucky that he didn't have in the first one. It's funny. It is super cool. It has just the right amount of references to other properties. It makes sense as to why none of the other superheroes after Avengers would show up to this thing. Everything about it, I really enjoyed. What is your number 17?
My number 17 is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And
okay,
this was This was hard to put on my list because how can you put this on the list without thinking about just what happened to Chadwick Boseman? So the bringing in Namor was an interesting choice. I just want to think about what this whole thing would have been like if Ryan Coogler would have gotten to make the movie here originally. Because I love the first Black Panther. And
me too.
I think it just would have been hard for lightning to strike twice. And that's our sacred timeline for this week. What do we have coming up next week, Nick?
Well, next week's episode will be season 2, episode 4, title not found.
Such a good title.
I thought so. But that won't be our next episode in your podcast feed. Tune in Tuesday as we bring you Star Trek Lower Deck season 4, episode 9, title not found.
Wow, same title. That's cool.
I know. What are the odds? But until next time, please like, subscribe, drop out of a lifeboat while sleeping, share the podcast, and rate us 5 stars on your listening app of choice. Also, you can find us on social media. I'm on Blue Sky, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Jagged2319.
I'm on Instagram, Threads, Blue Skies, and Serialized at MLHilty2452. You can also contact the show at geekspeaklouder@gmail.com or on Blue Sky by searching Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are coming soon, so just be patient with us as we figure all of this out. Until next time, I'm Mike Hilty.
And I'm Nick Farrow. Thank you for tuning in to Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds. Bye, everybody.
Catchphrase.
Miss Minutes decides that this is the perfect time to start. I already said that. So she is just over. Nope, said that too. It's the Frozen argument all over again, which we've never had on this podcast, so it would be the first time. But the short version is there's no way Hans was the bad guy, because if he was, he literally cock-blocked himself the whole movie, because his plan was to become king, and yet he stopped other people from stopping, capturing, and killing Elsa. If he had just not done anything, he would have gotten exactly what he wanted. So it makes no sense that suddenly he's the bad guy. Oh, and also, it would be a Cheese Whiz statue of Sexy Rutherford.